So in this video I'm going to do a video guide of my all legacies in 867 on an Ironman File run. Now you may notice first of all I'm currently playing on debug mode. The reason is simple, the setup for this run takes like an hour and I really don't want to prolong this video for too long. But everything that is done in this video can be done on Iron mode as I did myself. You can even achieve an earlier date with all legacies because I needed to improve my strategies and at some point the game got really laggy, so I had to work with what I was given. But now the basis for this run is the character swap glitch. Now I have done a separate video on that topic, so I'm not gonna thoroughly explain it. But basically we are doing a game over with a character to be able to then swap characters in Ironman mode. So first things of course would be enabling Ironman. Now what we're going to do right away is set up our character we're going to play later on. Now in this case I'm choosing that one county there because it's first of all tribal and close enough to the Han culture. We'll get to that later. Now, some things we want is, I have no clue how to pronounce this name. Piety, something like that. Whatever, we need a religion with the human sacrifice tenet. Then in terms of culture, we need a culture with mystical ancestors. This is an absolute requirement. Now, mystical ancestors cannot be gotten in any shape or form other if the culture already has it. You cannot diverge or reform a culture and get it. The base culture needs to have it. So we're going to pick Han. There are also some different ones like a Akan right here. I just picked Han. Does not matter really. Then realm, banners and all do not matter. Next up what we want is a 32-year-old character with exactly one son. The reason why we make him 32 years old is so that his son will be 16 years old at that point, and so the son is also an adult. The next up we want as an education trait a martial education trait. The reason is so we can get a certain lifestyle perk, and it's gonna be Casus Belli, like the 50%, Bellum Justum, 50% Casus Belli reduction cost. Next up what we're going to do is get the trait Cynical. Reason is it reduces the faith conversion cost. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bump the rest of our points into learning and maybe reduce a few things. Now we'll give him a name, and this is basically the character setup. I shouldn't have forgotten anything, right? No. This is the character setup. So we can create that character. Now, before we play as the character, we need to get the glitch going. In this case, a buddy of mine showed me that East Anglia is literally the best starting place, so we're going to take that. We'll start a run, you can call it whatever you want. Now, why is East Anglia that good? It's quite simple, you can immediately surrender the war, fall into a game over state. At which point we're going to now use the swap character, bug, glitch, whatever you may call it. So we're gonna exit to the main menu and wait for this game to load. By the way, I feel like since Royal Court the game has gotten a lot slower, especially when you have a lot of counties under your belt. But now what we're going to do is we're going to hit observe, then exit to the main menu. Like prior to Royal Court, I felt the game was running way more smoothly. Like I noticed it in my run especially, because like once I had 1,000 counties, it got so laggy. And that's gonna be one more point, is never press F2, which opens your RAM screen. So now we can pick this county, and if you've done the glitch exploit, you can also swap characters. Now, one of the things we want to do is, in fact, we want to diverge our culture, get spiritual, and by the sword. Now, this will take 5,500 prestige. Now, the way we'll get prestige is a bit annoying, but it sadly has to be done, is we'll switch to a different character, declare war, like a county, for example, surrender the war immediately, which means that the one we attack gains prestige, and we can go like through all of the different counties and do it all over again. Okay, didn't mean to raise armies, doesn't matter though. And that way we'll first of all get some gold and some prestige, and you basically do it like with every single nation over here. It's a bit tedious, a bit annoying, but you have to do it. And this is one of the reasons I'm gonna use debug mode right now, so we can just give ourselves 5,000 prestige. Now what you want to do is, you want to of course diverge your culture. Now it says right here, you do not have a county with that culture, and this is why we start over here, because the Hun culture is down there. Which means if we simply declare war for any piece, swap to this character, surrender, and we have gotten this piece of land, and we can suddenly reform our culture with by the sword, which allows us to do infinite amounts of holy wars for kingdom titles, which is how we're going to amass a lot of titles later on. And spiritual will pick it so that the cost is lower. Diverge our culture, and there we have our by the sword with mystical ancestors culture. Now, one thing you may want to do as well is increase your crown authority right now, because later on we're going to go into debt in terms of prestige, and you won't be able to raise it anymore, and you need to be able to imprison characters. Now we're gonna start farming piety. The main way we're going to do that is by going for a raid for captives. Now, in fact, we may even need to get some piety right now. So we're gonna get some piety on that character. Now we have 100 piety. And I forgot, we actually want to pick Bellum Justem right here for that reduced cost. The rest does not matter. It just reduces the cost we have to pay. So we pay currently 50 piety. Swap over to the other character, surrender, which means the other character gets 500 piety, so that's 450 profit. And next up, what you're gonna need to do is go to our prisoner tab, mass execute all of those characters, and then you can declare war again. Now we're gonna truce break, which means we're gonna lose a lot of prestige. I mean, fame levels do not matter to us. But this is what I meant with we're going to go into debt in terms of prestige. Now, one thing you may notice, if you try to declare war immediately, you don't get the option to raid for captives. You first need to execute all prisoners. And only then will you be able to declare war again. By the way, I've noticed if you have a lot of notifications going, the game gets a bit laggy, so you may want to clear it from time to time again. This doesn't matter. And in case you get 5 prisoners, that's the perfect case, because you can mass execute. If you get like 3 prisoners or 2, you have to click on each one individually. Gets a bit more annoying, but nothing really that can be done. Now, my personal goal was like 60,000 piety is what I went for. Now, I did not need all of that as I was not able to go for a full world conquest run, but that was my rough goal. Just in case you really want to conquer all nations, and then I guess you can do it by the 10th of January already. So we're going to assume you've done a lot of warring against them, like creating for captives. You can do it indefinitely. So you've got all your piety now. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to reform your faith, but before you even reform your faith, you want to convert to a different faith. Now we are going to take Catholicism. Reason is Catholicism already has armed pilgrimages, which is 20% less piety cost to declare holy wars. It just makes the whole thing cheaper. Now, due to having a high learning, cynical, and all that, it's rather cheap. And then we're gonna reform the faith immediately. Now call it whatever you want. I'm gonna call it my classical thing. Pick a face symbol. Now, hilariously enough, the top leftmost color does not work. You literally cannot use it. You can use like any other color besides the top leftmost. Now, what we're gonna want to do is get lay clergy, and then pursuit of power. You want to keep pilgrimages and then get pursuit of power. And I think now, let me look at my notes. Yep. This is what you want to do. Costs a bit of piety again, but what can you do? Now, the reason why we went for an Abrahamic faith instead of staying with Tengri, which is I don't even know, a pagan faith is, Abrahamic faiths consider every other religion either hostile or evil. And in this case, as we have our own religion, no one else follows, everyone else is hostile or evil, meaning we can do holy wars against them. And that is literally what we're going to do. We're going to truce break. Okay, maybe. Okay, do that. That was a small piece of land, whatever. We're just gonna mass declare wars. Now it may say at the bottom you can only declare one per lifetime, because for some reason it doesn't take by the sword into consideration. Like what I mean is you may only attempt one now, while the sword allows indefinite amounts as long as there are different kingdoms. And you can see we can massively amass titles. We're at 53. Now once again, if you have more than a certain amount of titles, never open this screen. This is why getting that crown authority up early is quite important. And truce breaking to us does not matter, by the way. Hilariously enough, if you actually start the game, there's a certain grace period in which factions cannot appear, so that general opinion debuff you get does not matter at all. For empires, I think it's 10 years, and that general opinion debuff lasts 3 years. Now, one thing you can do actually early on for a bit more efficiency is once you get some titles going, is you can grant a lot of these titles. Okay, once we have our duchy. You need Sumerian and duchy, okay. By the way, you just saw it costs still 125. You actually need to reload the game. We're gonna do that in a moment, but first we're gonna grant our son some titles. You need 1000 renown gain. Exactly. Because once we do that, okay, you have enough renown to be able to get the second warfare thing, which is Caster's belly cost is reduced by 20%, which just makes warring faster. So you can see it's now 240 instead of 300. Saves you a bit of piety. And you just do this all day long, basically. Against these big nations, it's quite efficient. Against smaller nations, you actually have to let them game over, then go back to the main menu, do the character swap glitch again all over. That's a bit annoying, but what can be done? If you want to get a lot of legacies quite early on, that's the way to go. And now I'm just going to show you, like especially with the titles. Previously, by the way, you were able to get the cost down to 0 gold. Now it's only down to 10% of the base amount, which is definitely enough. Like, we need to switch to other nations, attack our main nation, and surrender in order to be able to get a lot of gold, which is a bit annoying. But let's say we want to attack Simi. We're going to take the whole thing. If we switch over to them and surrender, of course, we're going to game over. So we're going to exit to the main menu and do the whole thing over again. Now, in case someone really cares, my run with a few fuck-ups took like 6.5 hours in total. Now, what were some fuck-ups? I hit F2 3 times in total, which caused my game to crash. It simply would not load with a lot of titles. So I lost like easily half an hour each time. So you can calculate it down to like 5 hours. And then I had to improvise certain strategies. Like Paradox changed certain things they have not mentioned in the patch notes. And there are certain bugs. Like for example, my current character diverged his culture. Now if you play as your son, then it will say this character has willingly changed his culture and as such cannot convert to local culture. Like you can see, this is what it says with my current character. And it makes sense. After all, I diverged my culture. And so we had to find a workaround for that. But now you can see we got Simi, and now the title creation cost is even reduced. Okay, I was lying. It's 20% now as the base cost. You cannot get around. Not 10%. So that's definitely a massive nerf. The reason you want to create a lot of titles is, of course, you can more quickly grant it away to your child. Like if I create Mongolia, like we're gonna give ourselves some gold, and then some more duchies. The thing what I can do, and of course if you're an empire and you can grant away kingdoms, it's even easier. I can just select these duchies. And you can see we get 1,500 renown. Now, of course, if you go for an empire, you know what, we're actually going to do that, fuck it. But you can see with these small nations, it's kind of annoying, like you have to perform that swap glitch every single time. And that's why it takes a bit. Now, I cut out a large portion of like the Piety grinding with debug mode, but you're going to have to do that as well. And that may cause some wrist pain issues. It's a lot of clicking over and over again, like over and over again and again. Not fun. Now hit observe, hit exit to main menu, and you can see Ironman is enabled. If we were not in debug mode, achievements would be enabled as well. But I cannot be bothered doing this for a video demonstration and keeping it under a certain amount of time. Now switch characters. Can we create the Empire Hope for? Oh my god. We're just gonna do a Holy War for County. And like this way, if I create all the kingdoms, if I could, I can just grant those kingdoms away and then it's way faster. Now let's say you've conquered all the lands you have ever wanted and now want to simply gain a lot of Renown to unlock those legacies. What you're gonna do is, now your son actually has titles, you're gonna try to imprison him. Then once you do that, you're gonna switch characters over to your son. Then it's preferably to set your speed as 1, so you don't waste days. Wait exactly 1 day, and the game will automatically pause. And he wants to arrest you, your father. You can decline. The game is still paused, which I really like. So it will start a tyranny war. As your father, you can now surrender to him, which means you are deposed, and your son is now the leash. And now, due to the setup we have with a father with exactly 1 son, the father is now going to be the son's player heir, which means we can simply grant all of these titles again. Now, sadly, if you have multiple empire titles, you can even Ctrl click on that empire and then deselect the empire again to make it go even faster, but we sadly don't. And like you see, 4,200 renown gained. Now, one more thing you want to actually do is you want to find yourself a wife, which would be of Norse culture. Now, in fact, we have not conquered up to the Norse lands, so that's one thing you want to keep in mind. The reason you want to find yourself a Norse wife is so that you can marry that wife, then land that wife within a single county, and that county is going to be in a Norse region, and then play as the wife by simply swapping characters, and then you can adopt the Norse culture. Like, as you can see, it says I cannot convert to the local culture. But if my wife adopts the local culture, then like she can do it, and somewhere it says other people will also do it. As your family will also adopt the culture. Like, I personally did it in a way where I first unlanded my heir, which is simply imprison your father, place your father, wait a day, decline this shit, place him, surrender, and then play King. Like, now our player heir is unlanded, so if the wife now does convert to local culture, you can just switch to her. Our son would change to Norse culture, at which point we would get access to more Dynasty Legacies. Now, near the end of the run, what you may notice is your father's actually the dynasty head, and if you play as your son, you cannot actually spend Renown, which is a bit problematic. So the workaround I found, in order to be able to become the dynasty head quite quickly, as your son is, first of all, you grant your stuff to the son, place him, okay, first imprison him, wait a day, then switch to father. Now, as a father, as your son, you want to give him a title. He just needs some title, so you can actually imprison him, because otherwise you cannot place him. You switch to your son, your father. Now you accept the imprisonment. You switch to your son. You pick out your father, and then you execute him. And now suddenly we are dynasty head. You became the new house head, and you became the new dynasty head. There you go. And now, if you were of Norse culture, you could also unlock those 2 legacies. And, well, I think this is actually all about the guide. Like, this way, if you do a lot of world conquest, you can get a lot of titles. Now, you may not be able to grant all your titles to a character in one go, as I did. Like, if you grant titles, it does get laggy if you have selected a certain amount of titles. So you may do it in several goes, but that doesn't really matter. In the end, the in-game days will advance very slowly. And I personally did it with a lot of fuck-ups, like even at the start of the game. I didn't start on the 1st, but on the 4th of January. That's like 3 days for difference. I didn't conquest the whole world. That's multiple days you could save. So I'd say you can definitely do it by the 10th of January, getting all Dynasty Legacies. And that's it from me, basically. This is the whole guide, how to actually do it. Now, of course, preferably not in debug mode, but I really don't want to drag out this video any longer. It's already way too long. So, thanks for watching and have fun with these exploits. Goodbye.